Christine Quinn is president of Win, the largest provider of shelter for women with children. So the big development in the whole fight about migrants and where should they live has been a decision by a judge that there has to be mediation between legal aid advocates, the mayor, and the state government. Mediation? So basically the mayor wants the judge to say they should change the right to shelter. I have a feeling you have a strong opinion about that.
You know, the right to shelter is a 40-year-plus policy of the city of New York that they got forced into because of the Callahan decision. And the mayor wants to change what has been a fundamental part of how we treat people in this city. And I think that is a terrible idea for a number of reasons, but the least of which, do you know what a city looks like when it doesn't have right to shelter? San Francisco. You end up on the cover of all the national papers with homeless people living everywhere on the street. We don't want that in New York. It's not humane. It's not good for tourism. It's not good for our city. Now, does mediation always work? No. But I think it's a good thing that the judge didn't give in to the mayor's request at the first look at this and is going to force everybody to be in a room together. You know, look, I don't envy the mayor's position with all of these asylum seekers coming in. It's a big challenge that you could not have prepared for. But there's things that we can do that would help solve that crisis far short of repealing the right to shelter. You know, when I think about the right to shelter, yes, it's a policy, yes, it's a decree. It's who we are. We as a city, we don't turn our back on people. We don't say no, we don't have enough room at the inn. It's simply not who we are.
So, but here's the question. So you go into a room and you got to mediate. Is there a middle ground? The minute you say middle ground, what you have is a situation where something changes in the right to shelter law. Is that acceptable to you? You
know, I think there are options where you could make small or distinct changes. Well, I don't want to negotiate here because I'm not one of the people in that room, right? So I don't want to kind of jam them up with me saying X, Y, or Z. But look, you know, they'll have that conversation, and I believe something reasonable could be arrived at. But also, you know, right now, the mayor's right. We're spending billions and billions of dollars housing asylum seekers. If we were to give housing vouchers to them, to all of the undocumented people, we could save $3 billion a year. That's a policy. I know it's a big policy, but it's one that would get people into housing and save us money. Why not do that?
But here's the question. Where would they use the vouchers? The problem in a nutshell is that there's a massive housing shortage in New York City. So are you saying we give them vouchers and they could go any place in the state?
Well, that is now the policy. Mayor Adams has changed it so you could use a housing voucher anywhere in the state.
But the other localities don't want that.
But other localities, if you think about an individual...
I mean, they're fighting it.
They are, but that doesn't mean they're going to win. And right now, you're in an individual conversation with a lawyer. Landlord, excuse me. You very well will get that apartment. But, you know, this past year, we decreased the length of stay in our shelter by 4 months. That speaks to the availability of apartments out there with vouchers if we were able to move people out so much more quickly.
Would the city have to increase the amount of money in the vouchers so that people could find some kind of suitable housing in the state of New York?
I'm all for raising always the amount of money in a voucher, but in the last year of the de Blasio administration, the city council passed a law at Wynn's request that raised the amount from about $1,500 to $2,200, and it goes up every year based on inflation.
So where do you find an apartment for $2,200 with a family with children?
So one of the things we did pushing for that bill was we had Street Easy do a study for us, and they found that at $1,500 for a family of 4, there were no neighborhoods where that was the area median rent. Now there's dozens of neighborhoods under $2,200. Washington Heights, for example, is a neighborhood where that is the area median rent. It's been enormously helpful, not to say we couldn't go even higher to be more successful. But what we often hear from landlords is the process is too bureaucratic. It takes too long to get approvals. And we had a meeting just this week with the city to talk about how to fix those problems so that we can make it easier for landlords, particularly small landlords who can't, you know, cash flow wise, hold apartments.
I do have to ask you this question. Given the fact that there are now about 67,000 people approximately in shelter, some of them families, some of them single men, some of them single women, is there enough housing stock if they were all given vouchers to find a place to live? I mean, it seems like a huge amount of apartments that you're going to need.
It is a big amount of apartments, and I think the mayor is taking good steps as it relates to changing zoning so that you can build taller and bigger in some places, so that we can convert unused office space to housing. So I think
that's down the line.
But some of them are fairly quick. If you think about like converting an office space, that's not going to take that long. The building, yes, that will take longer. I'm confident with vouchers we can find enough housing, but we will need to replenish that housing. And that's why I do applaud the mayor for pushing these zoning changes, which a lot of people wouldn't have done.
So we have about 15 seconds left. Are you convinced that we could find enough housing if we gave people vouchers?
If we gave people vouchers, we streamlined the system, we treated the small landlords better, and maybe if we had to raise the amount, yes, I am very confident.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.